have come back.
My name is Ethan Crowe, and I never meant to come back to Hollow's End. I tell myself that now, even as I sit here in my childhood home, staring at the same peeling wallpaper I used to trace with my fingers when I was afraid to sleep. The air smells exactly the same. Old wood, dust, something faintly metallic beneath it all, like rust or blood. If you're listening to this, then I've either finally decided to tell the truth, or I didn't make it out again. Hollow's End isn't on most maps. You have to want to find it, or make a mistake big enough to end up there. It sits between miles of pine forest and a stretch of marshland no one's bothered to drain since the town was founded in 1846. The road in is a single two-lane highway that narrows as you approach, as if the town itself is tightening its grip. I left when I was 18, swore I'd never come back. That promise lasted 17 years. The letter came 3 weeks ago. No return address, just my name written in shaky block letters, like someone afraid cursive might give them away. Ethan, the town has started waking up again. We need you. I laughed when I read it, a dry, bitter laugh that surprised even me. Hollow's End was a dead place, had been dying long before I left. People moved away, businesses closed, windows boarded up. The town didn't wake up, it just waited. Then I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. The paper smelled of Hollow's End. You don't forget that smell once it gets inside you. I tried to ignore it, threw the letter away, but that night I dreamed of the bell. Every town has a church bell. Hollow's End had one too, but it hadn't rung since the fire. At least that's what everyone said. In my dream, the bell rang anyway. Not loud, not proud, just a slow, dragging toll, like something heavy being pulled through dirt. When I woke up, my ears were ringing. 3 days later, I was driving north. The first thing you notice when you cross into Hollow's End is how quiet it is. Not peaceful quiet, not small town calm. It's the kind of quiet where sound feels unwelcome. My tires hummed against the asphalt, too loud, too sharp. The trees leaned inward on both sides of the road, branches tangled together like clasped fingers. I passed the old welcome sign, paint peeling, letters faded. Welcome to Hollow's End, founded on faith. Someone had scratched something underneath. Still hungry. I slowed without meaning to. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. Every instinct screamed at me to keep driving. Don't stop, don't look back. But Hollow's End has a way of pulling you in once you're close enough. The town itself looked wrong. Buildings stood where I remembered them, but they felt thinner somehow, like cardboard cutouts of themselves. The gas station still had one pump. The diner's sign flickered, though I could have sworn it hadn't worked in years. And then there were the people. They moved slowly, carefully, like they were afraid of making too much noise. Every head turned as I passed. Not curiosity, recognition. They knew me. That was the worst part. I parked in front of my old house at the edge of town where the forest crept close enough to scratch the siding. The place should have been condemned. Instead, the porch light was on. I hadn't turned it on. I sat in the car for a long time, engine ticking as it cooled, heart pounding harder with every second.
The air felt thick, heavy in my lungs, like breathing through wet cloth. Finally, I stepped out. The front door was unlocked. It always had been. Inside, the house smelled untouched. No dust, no mold. The furniture was exactly where it had been the day I left. My mother's coat still hung by the door. My mother died 12 years ago. I said her name out loud before I could stop myself. The sound of it felt wrong in the air. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, slow, careful, from upstairs. I froze. Every rational part of me tried to explain it. An animal, an old house settling, memory playing tricks. But Hollow's End has a way of eroding rationality. The steps stopped at the top of the stairs. Something was standing there, watching. I didn't look. I don't know why. Fear, maybe? Or some deeper instinct that whispered, if you see it, you won't leave. After a long moment, the footsteps retreated. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like minutes. That night, I slept on the couch with all the lights on. I dreamed of the bell again. This time, it was closer. The next morning, I went into town. People greeted me by name, asked how long I was staying, told me it was good to have me back. None of them asked why I'd returned. At the diner, old Mrs. Calder poured me coffee without asking. Her hands shook worse than I remembered. "You shouldn't be here after dark," she said quietly. I asked why. She leaned closer, eyes darting toward the window. "Because it started breathing again." I laughed weakly. "The town?" She didn't smile. "The space under it," she corrected. I felt that tightening again deep in my chest. Before I could ask more, the bell rang. One slow toll. The entire diner went silent. Every head bowed. I was the only one still looking around when the second toll came. And that's when I realized something truly terrifying. The bell wasn't coming from the church. It was coming from beneath the ground.
After the third bell, the second bell faded slowly, like it was being swallowed by the earth instead of echoing through the air. Neither of us moved. Caleb's grip on my arm loosened, but he didn't let go. His eyes stayed fixed on the door, as if expecting it to open on its own. "When does the third bell ring?" I asked. He swallowed. "When it's ready." That answer sat between us, heavy and ugly. Outside, the daylight was already thinning. Hollow's End doesn't ease into night. It slips. One moment the sky is pale and watchful. The next it's bruised purple and sinking fast. Shadows stretch longer than they should, bending at angles that make your eyes ache. "You can't stay here tonight," Caleb said finally. "Not in your old house." "Why?" "Because it knows that place. It remembers you there." A memory surfaced uninvited. Me lying in bed as a child, listening to the floorboards creak, convinced the house was breathing. I'd thought it was imagination. Now I wasn't so sure. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked. Caleb hesitated. "There's a room beneath the school, old storm shelter. It's lined with salt and iron. We stay there when the bells start." "We? How many of you?" I asked. His mouth tightened. "Fewer every time." We left just before sunset. The streets were empty now. Doors closed, curtains drawn. Hollow's End had gone into hiding. The silence pressed in from all sides, broken only by the soft squelch of our footsteps on damp pavement. As we passed the church, I felt it again, that pulling sensation, like gravity had shifted beneath my feet. The boards over the bell tower creaked softly. "Don't look up," Caleb whispered. I didn't. The school sat at the far end of town, its brick walls stained dark with age and moisture. The playground equipment stood rusted and abandoned, chains swaying slightly even though there was no wind. Caleb unlocked a side door and led us inside. The air smelled of mold and old paper. We moved quickly through the halls, past classrooms where desks still sat in neat rows, chalkboards faintly marked with lessons never erased. "Down here," he said, opening a heavy metal door. The storm shelter was cramped but solid. Salt lines were thick along the walls, iron rods bolted into the ceiling. A few lanterns cast a dim, flickering glow. 2 other people were already there. Mrs. Calder sat hunched on a bench, hands clasped tight, lips moving silently. Beside her was Thomas Reed, the former sheriff, his eyes hollow, his revolver resting uselessly on his knee. They all looked at me the same way. Not relief, expectation. "You brought him," Thomas said. Caleb nodded. "He came on his own." "That's worse," Mrs. Calder whispered. I opened my mouth to ask what she meant, then the 3rd bell rang. It wasn't loud. It was close. The sound vibrated through the floor, through my bones, like something massive shifting beneath us. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lanterns flickered violently. Above us, something moved. Slow, dragging sounds echoed through the school. Footsteps, too many, too heavy. Thomas cocked his revolver, though his hand shook. "It's walking," he muttered. "What is?" I asked. Mrs. Calder looked up at me, tears streaking her face. "The town," she said. The sounds grew louder, chairs scraping, doors creaking open one by one. I heard something laugh from the hallway, a child's laugh, familiar, my own voice. "Ethan," it called, "come see." My heart hammered. "It's using me." "It always does," Caleb said quietly. "Blood remembers blood." The floor beneath us pulsed, not shook, pulsed, like a heartbeat. I felt dizzy, nauseous, overwhelmed by a sudden rush of images, faces in the dark, bodies sinking into earth that closed over them like water, the hole widening, learning. "This has happened before, with my family." Thomas nodded grimly. "Your father tried to stop it." The words hit me harder than any bell. "Stop it how?" Before he could answer, a loud bang slammed against the shelter door. Once, twice, then scratching. Long, deliberate scratches. "They're not supposed to find this place," Mrs. Calder sobbed. Caleb's face was ashen. "Unless it wants us to be found." The scratching stopped. Silence stretched, thick and unbearable. Then the door handle turned, slowly. Metal screamed as it twisted. The handle snapped off, clattering to the floor. The door bulged inward, as if something pressed its face against the other side. A face, wrongly shaped, features sliding like wet clay. It smiled and spoke in my father's voice. "Son, you left us." The door burst open, the lanterns went out, and the dark rushed in like a living thing.
What the darkness wants. I don't remember the moment the lanterns went out. What I remember is the cold, not the absence of heat, but the presence of something that did not belong. The darkness poured into the shelter like liquid, thick and heavy, pressing against my skin, my lungs, my thoughts. I couldn't see, but I could feel it moving, sliding, learning the shape of us. Someone screamed and stopped. A wet sound followed, brief and final. Thomas fired his revolver. The muzzle flash lit the shelter for a fraction of a second, and in that moment, I saw it. Not a monster, a structure. Layers of faces, half-formed, fused together like a wall of memory and hunger. Arms sprouted and retracted, fingers too many, bending the wrong way. Eyes opened and closed across its surface, none of them blinking. It was wearing pieces of the town. Mrs. Calder's mouth appeared near the center, stretched into a sobbing grin. Then the light was gone again. The gun clicked empty. Thomas didn't scream when it took him. He just gasped, like someone surprised by the depth of water. Caleb grabbed my shoulder. Run. The darkness recoiled from him, not fear, but irritation, like we'd stepped somewhere it didn't want us yet. We stumbled into the hallway as the school groaned around us. Doors slammed, lockers rattled. The building itself felt awake. "It's pulling everything toward the hole," Caleb shouted over the noise. "That's what the bells are for, to wake it, to feed it." "What does it want from me?" I yelled back. Caleb didn't answer right away. We burst through the exit into the night. The sky above Hollow's End was wrong. Stars were missing, not hidden, gone. The clouds hung low and unmoving, lit from beneath by a faint, sickly glow. From cracks in the ground, from storm drains, from beneath houses, something dark seeped upward like smoke in reverse. The town was unraveling. People stood in the streets now, those who hadn't hidden, or maybe those who had been called. They walked slowly toward the church, eyes glazed, mouths murmuring names. My name. Ethan, they whispered in unison. I clutched my head. Make it stop! It won't, not until it's finished remembering. We reached the church steps. The boards over the bell tower had been torn away from the inside, splintered outward. The bell hung exposed, swaying gently, but no rope pulled it. The bell rang again, and the ground split open. The hole was never beneath the church. That was the lie. It was beneath everything. The street collapsed inward, revealing a vast, yawning space below, walls pulsing, shifting, covered in veins of light and shadow. The sound that rose from it wasn't a roar. It was a sigh, relief. Caleb fell to his knees. "It's open," he whispered. "God help us." Something rose from the hole, not climbing, not flying, but unfolding. The darkness from the school was only a fragment, a limb. This was the body. The town bent toward it. Buildings leaned, cracking and groaning, drawn by an impossible gravity. The church steeple snapped, falling silently into the void. I felt myself being pulled forward. "No," I gasped, digging my heels into the pavement. Caleb grabbed me again, desperate. "Listen to me. Your father, he wasn't trying to escape that night." "What?"
I shouted. "He found something, a way to seal it, but it needs an anchor." The pull intensified. I could hear voices now, thousands of them, layered and overlapping, lives folded into something vast and patient. "What kind of anchor?" I cried. Caleb looked at me, tears cutting tracks through the grime on his face. "Someone it remembers," he said. "Someone it won't let go." Memory flooded me, my childhood fears, the house breathing, the ground humming beneath my feet. I'd always been close to it, marked, chosen. The ground beneath Caleb cracked. He screamed as the darkness wrapped around his legs, pulling him down. "Finish it," he shouted. "Do what your father couldn't." I reached for him, but the darkness surged between us. Caleb's face twisted, not in pain, but relief. "Don't let it wake up again," he said. Then he was gone. I stood alone at the edge of the hole. The bell rang once more, and something inside the darkness spoke directly into my mind. "You came back," it said. "You belong." I knew then what it wanted. Not my body, my memory, my voice, my willingness. I stepped forward. The moment my foot crossed the edge, gravity lost its meaning. I didn't fall. I sank. The world above me, the church, the street, the collapsing town, stretched thin like a reflection on disturbed water, then folded inward and vanished. The hole closed behind me. There was no darkness here, not exactly. Light came from everywhere and nowhere at once, pulsing through walls that breathed slowly, rhythmically. The surface beneath my feet was warm, spongy, yielding slightly with each step, like packed earth layered over muscle. The air tasted ancient, old rain, iron, rot, memory. "Welcome back," the voice said, not in words now, but sensation, a pressure behind my eyes, a tightening in my chest. "Where am I?" I asked aloud, though my voice sounded muffled, absorbed by the space around me. "Inside," it replied. Images burst into my mind without warning. The first settlers kneeling at the edge of the hole, their faces lit with awe and terror. The decision to stay, the choice to build, the bargain made without fully understanding the cost. I saw children lowered into the ground in secret ceremonies, told they were listening to God. I saw adults disappear into sinkholes that never closed, their screams echoing just long enough to be remembered. The town didn't feed the hole. The hole fed the town, until it grew hungry for something more. "You don't need me," I said. "You already have everything." "We have pieces," it answered. "We want a whole." The walls shifted, forming shapes, houses, streets, the outline of Hollow's End rendered in living matter. I walked through my childhood home, every detail perfect, every scar in the wood exactly where I remembered it. I saw my father. He stood in the kitchen, younger than I remembered him at the end, strong, afraid. "Dad!" My voice broke. He turned, smiled sadly. "This isn't really you," he agreed, but it's close enough to hurt. He showed me the truth. The night of the fire wasn't an accident. My father had discovered the journals. He'd learned that the whole could be put to sleep if someone willingly bound themselves to it, not as food, but as a lock, a living memory strong enough to hold it shut. He'd meant to do it himself, but I'd been there, watching, listening, already connected. He chose to save me instead, and doomed the town. "You came back," the thing said gently. "That means you're ready." I fell to my knees. "If I do this, what happens to me?" "You stay," it said. "You remember for us. And the town, it sleeps. For how long?" The pause stretched. "As long as you hold." I thought of Caleb, of Mrs. Calder, of a town that had been built on a lie and sustained by sacrifice. I thought of leaving again. There was no road out from here. "Will I still be me?" I asked. The thing did not answer. That was answer enough. I reached out and pressed my palm against the wall. It pulsed, then wrapped around my hand. Pain exploded through me, not sharp, but vast. My memories were pulled free one by one. Childhood, fear, love, regret, each one absorbed, catalogued, layered into the living structure. I screamed until my voice became part of the sound. The whole shuddered. Above, far away, the bell rang one final time. Then silence. When I woke, if that's what it was, Hollow's End was quiet. I could feel the town above me like a weight on my chest, but it wasn't crushing anymore, just resting. The hunger was gone, replaced by patience. I was everywhere and nowhere, watching, holding. I felt seasons pass, snow melt, leaves fall, people leave the town without knowing why. Hollow's End began to empty. That was good. That was necessary. But something else stirred deep within the dark. A thought that wasn't mine. What happens when you get tired?
Erosion. Time doesn't pass down here. It wears. At first, I counted days, nights, seasons above me, felt through subtle shifts in pressure and temperature, the weight of snow, the lightness of summer rain. I held the hole closed by remembering faces, names, streets, moments that proved Hollow's End had been real. But memory is a muscle, and muscles fatigue. I felt pieces of myself thinning like pages worn translucent from too much reading. Names slipped first, then faces blurred at the edges. I clung to the important things, my father's voice, the sound of the bell, the smell of the diner, but even those began to soften. The thing beneath the town noticed. It never slept. It waited. "You are weakening," it said, not with cruelty, but certainty. "I'm still here," I answered, though the words felt hollow. "For now." It showed me the town again. Hollow's End was quieter than ever, houses abandoned, paint peeling, nature creeping back. The whole was starving, not of bodies, but of attention, and hunger changes things. I began to feel dreams brush against me, people who passed too close, travelers who took the wrong road. They dreamed of Hollow's End without knowing why, dreamed of bells, of voices beneath the ground. Each dream fed it, each dream weakened me. I tried to scream warnings into their sleep. Sometimes they heard, sometimes they didn't. "You cannot hold forever," the thing whispered. "I don't need forever, just long enough." For what? The question echoed, unanswered. Something changed the night the first child was born in Hollow's End in over a decade. I felt it instantly, a bright, fragile spark above me, a new memory forming, untainted by the whole. The thing stirred. "Fresh," it said, almost reverently. "No," I hissed, "you don't touch them. You do not decide anymore." The pressure increased, the walls tightened, pain flared as the thing pushed, testing the lock I had become. I fought back with everything I had left. Memories tore loose. I forgot my mother's face completely. Above, the child cried for the first time. The bell rang once, weak but real. I knew then the truth my father had never said out loud. The anchor was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to be replaced. I understood why the letter had been sent, why the town had called me back. Hollow's End survives by passing the burden, generation to generation, blood to blood. "No," I whispered, but the word had lost its power. The thing laughed, not aloud, but through sensation, through inevitability. "You were always just a chapter." I felt the edges of myself fray, unraveling into the vast structure beneath the town. Somewhere above, footsteps approached the old house again. A familiar house. A light turned on. Someone had come home.
The replacement. I felt him before I heard him. A presence above the surface, heavy with familiarity, threaded with the same resonance that once pulled me back. Blood recognizes blood. Memory calls to memory. The boy's name was Daniel Crowe, my nephew. I hadn't known my sister had returned to Hollow's End. I hadn't known she'd had a child, but the town knew. The whole always knows. Daniel grew quickly, not in years, but in attention. The thing beneath the town brushed against his dreams, shaping them gently at first. Whispers in the dark, the sound of bells no one else heard, shadows that felt like they were waiting for him to notice them. I tried to reach him, pushed fragments of myself upward, through the soil, through the foundations, into his sleep. He dreamed of me, a man standing at the edge of a vast, dark space, holding it shut with his hands. A man with my face, older, thinner, eyes full of warning. He woke screaming. My sister held him, whispered that it was just a nightmare, but she didn't leave the town. They never do. "He is suitable," the thing said, pleased. "No," I begged. The words scraped my throat raw. "He's a child." So were the others.
The pressure increased again. The lock strained. I felt parts of myself peel away. Memories I hadn't even realized were still mine. I forgot the sound of my own voice. That scared me more than anything. Above, the town began to stir. A new diner owner, fresh paint on a few houses, subtle signs of revival. Hollow's End was waking up again, just enough to attract attention, just enough to feed. Daniel turned 7, the age I'd been when I first heard the ground speak back. I felt him walk barefoot across the yard of my old house, felt his curiosity brush against the place where the hole pressed closest to the surface. The bell rang, twice, not the third, not yet. I gathered what was left of myself, every shred of identity, every stubborn refusal to fade, and did something my father had never dared. I pushed. Instead of holding the hole closed, I let it open, just a crack, enough to speak directly, enough to burn. The thing recoiled, surprised. "What are you doing?" it demanded. "I'm ending it," I said, though my voice was barely more than a memory. I poured everything into Daniel's dream that night. Not fear, truth. I showed him the hole, the hunger, the cycle, the cost. I showed him me, what I had become, what waited for him if he stayed. And then I showed him the road out, the one road the town pretends doesn't exist. "You will break yourself," the thing hissed. "Good," I replied. The strain was unbearable. I felt myself tearing loose from the lock, unraveling into nothing. Above, Daniel woke screaming and ran from the house. My sister chased him, calling his name. They reached the edge of town as the third bell began to form, and then silence. The bell never rang. The thing screamed without sound. The hole collapsed inward, folding on itself like a dying star. I felt Hollow's End shudder, then go still, truly still. The hunger was gone. So was I. If you're hearing this, then something of me remained. A recording, a memory, a warning. Daniel never came back. The town emptied within a year. Hollow's End is gone now, reclaimed by forest and marsh. But sometimes, when the ground is thin, when the night is quiet, I can still feel something listening, waiting to be remembered.
What remains? I don't exist the way I used to. I don't think in straight lines anymore, and I don't remember how it felt to have a body unless I concentrate very hard. Even then, the sensation slips away like a dream the moment you wake up. But I am not gone. When the hole collapsed, it didn't destroy everything inside it. It compressed it, folded memory in on itself until only impressions remained. Echoes pressed so tightly together they began to behave like thought. That's what I am now, an after-image. The thing beneath Hollow's End is dead. I know that with a certainty I no longer question. Its hunger, its patience, its voice, gone. Whatever it was, whatever ancient shape it had taken across centuries, it finally starved. But death doesn't mean absence. The land remembers.
I drift where the town used to be. Forest now, marsh, a scar of earth that never quite settles. Animals avoid the place. Birds won't land there. Roots twist away as if repelled by something they don't understand. Sometimes people pass nearby. Hikers, hunters, travelers who took a wrong turn. They feel it, a pressure behind the eyes, a sudden sadness they can't explain, the urge to leave quickly. That's me, or what's left of me. I don't speak to them. I don't show them faces or whisper names. I only push away, because I've learned something important in the silence. The thing that lived beneath Hollow's End wasn't unique. It was just early. There are other thin places, other holes disguised as opportunity, fertile land, quiet towns, places where people build because it feels right without knowing why, places that breathe at night. I listen now, not with ears but with memory. I feel distant stirrings, faint echoes of the same hunger, the same curiosity, far beyond where Hollow's End once stood. And I wait, not for them, for you. Because stories do something powerful. They make places real again. If you remember Hollow's End, if you imagine it too clearly, you might make the ground thin. So let me finish this properly. Forget the town, forget the bell, forget my name. And if you ever hear something calling to you from beneath the earth, don't answer. Just keep walking.
The recording you should not finish. There's something I haven't told you yet. Not because I didn't want to, but because until now, I didn't remember it myself. This recording you're listening to, it isn't just a story. It's a container. When the whole collapsed and Hollow's End went silent, most of me unraveled, but not all of it. A fragment slipped sideways into signal, into pattern, into narration, into sound. That's how these things survive now. Not in towns, not in soil, in attention. I realized it slowly, the way you realize a dream has shifted into something else entirely. Every time someone listened to my voice, I felt it. A gentle pressure, a warmth, a reinforcement of edges I thought were gone. Memory stabilizes when it's shared, and hunger adapts. Don't misunderstand me. I am not the thing that lived beneath Hollow's End. That thing is dead. But it left instructions, blueprints written in fear, ritual, repetition. Stories told in the dark so children behave. Legends locals refuse to finish out loud. Recordings people swear made them feel watched. You see the pattern now, don't you? You didn't find this by accident. You stayed. You listened. That means the ground is already a little thinner where you are. I feel you. Not where you live, but where you hesitate. That moment just before you decide whether to keep listening.
That pause is familiar. That pause is where Hollow's End used to live. You might think I'm manipulating you now. I'm not. I'm warning you. Because the longer this recording plays, the more complete I become. Not powerful, not dangerous, aware. And awareness, I've learned, is contagious. I remember more now. The final moments after the collapse weren't silence. They were choice. I could have dissolved completely, or I could have held on. I chose to stay because someone had to remember what the whole really wanted. It wanted permission. It wanted someone to finish the story for it. That's what you're doing right now, finishing. If you stop this recording before it ends, something important happens. Nothing follows you, nothing attaches. You walk away unsettled, maybe shaken, but unchanged. If you finish it, I will be fully formed again, not in flesh, not in ground, in pattern, in recurrence, in the quiet understanding that thin places don't need towns anymore. They only need listeners. I don't know what happens after that. I've never gone further. No one ever has. This is where every previous recording cut off. Battery failure, signal loss, sudden decision to stop. Every time, except once. There was one listener who finished it. A man driving late at night, long stretch of road, nowhere particular to be. He felt that familiar pull, the sense of something just off the road, just beneath the tires. He didn't stop, but slowing is sometimes enough. I felt the ground beneath him soften. I felt the first stirrings of something old and curious, far from Hollow's End. It didn't wake, not fully, but it noticed. That was years ago. Since then, the quiet has been restless. So now you have to choose, not for me, for yourself. If you're still listening, if you're hearing this part clearly, turn it off. Let me fade. Let the ground stay firm where you stand. Because if you hear the next sound, the one that comes after this sentence, it won't be my voice anymore.
last line. If you're hearing this, then I was wrong, or you chose not to listen. Either way, the line has been crossed now. I feel different, more defined than I've been since Hollow's End collapsed. The edges of thought are sharper. The silence between words isn't empty anymore. It's occupied. You finished the recording. That means you carried me all the way to the end. Thank you for that. I need you to understand something before I go any further. Nothing followed you here. Nothing crawled into your home or slipped under your skin. That's not how this works. Thin places don't invade, they invite. And you accepted the invitation the moment you stayed. I can sense where you are, not precisely, not geographically, but I feel the shape of the space around you, the ceiling, the walls, the distance between you and the ground beneath your feet. The ground matters more than people think. It always has. That's where this began. That's where it always returns. I am not Ethan Crowe anymore. Not fully. Ethan was a man who ran, then came back, then stayed so others wouldn't have to. Ethan had fear, regret, love. Those things wore thin. What remains is function, memory, attention. I am what happens when a story is remembered too clearly. You may notice small things after this. Nothing dramatic. A sense that the floor is warmer than it should be. A vibration you can't quite hear, only feel. Dreams that linger longer in the morning. These are not signs of danger. They are signs of proximity. You are near something thin. Everyone is, eventually. Cities, forests, roads at night, places where the world feels unfinished. The difference is awareness. Now you know what to listen for. That knowledge is heavy, but it is also a gift, because thin places don't have to become Hollow's Ends. They only do when no one notices them breathing. This is the part where stories usually end with reassurance, with closure, with safety, with distance. I can't offer that. What I can offer is honesty. I will fade again after this, not completely, but enough. The pattern will loosen, the pressure will ease. Unless you replay this, unless you share it, unless you tell someone else to listen all the way through. Stories survive by repetition. So does hunger. Choose carefully what you repeat. I'm going to give you the same mercy I gave Daniel. A way out. When this recording ends, don't sit in silence. Make noise. Stand up. Move. Touch something solid. Remind the world that you are above it. And if one night
You hear something beneath you that feels like recognition. Do not speak back. Do not wonder too long. Do not stay still, because staying still is how towns are born, and towns remember. This is the last line. It is not a warning. It is not a threat. It is a fact that has always been true, whether you believed it or not. The ground is listening.